Today is January the 7th, 2019. Welcome to the new year for the Ripley City Board at 6 p.m. And this is our time and place for the monthly board meeting. Appreciate everyone being here this evening. See some of the business that we take care of on our agenda tonight. As we normally do, we'll start our meeting with a prayer and a pledge. And one of our student representatives is going to say the prayer this month, and the other one's going to say it in February. So we're covered with two fine Ripley High School seniors saying our prayer for the next 2 months. Seth Bird will start it off tonight. Please stand.
Lord, just thank you for letting us all get together today and just help this city in many different ways. And Lord, just help us go our several ways as we leave and go to our houses tonight. And Lord, just help us throughout this week and throughout this month and year. And to help us all be safe and healthy. Amen.
Amen.
Let's remain standing for the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good job.
Once again, I thank you for being here tonight. First item on our agenda is consider the December 3rd, 2018 minutes as printed and delivered in the agenda package. Mr. Alston makes the motion. Mr. Hankins a second. Discussion. Mr. Chipman?
Yes.
Mr. Hankins?
Yes.
Ms. Treadway?
Yes.
Ms. Alston?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Beard has had a death in his family, so I don't know if he's going to be here tonight or not. Consider the December 2018 financial statement as printed and delivered in the agenda package.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Chipman makes the motion, Mr. Treadway makes the second. Discussion. We're 6 months into this budget and everything is in good shape right now, and hopefully it'll stay that way. Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Alston?
Yes.
Ms. Treadway?
Yes.
Mr. Hankins?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chipman?
Yes, sir.
Correspondence, none. I got a letter from the hospital that each of the board members got for your information. You can read whenever, but I asked them for statements, so they clarified some things to us. Next item, Ms. Gwen Blackman requests to address the board regarding the Lauderdale Community Hospital provided by Alderman Davis.
Yes, Mayor, Ms. Blackman emailed me and asked to be put on the agenda. Of course, this is, excuse me, I'm battling sinus tonight. This is an area that is of great concern to all of us in this room, in this community. And I simply told Ms. Blackman that we'd be glad to hear what she had to say. Of course, at this point in time, I don't think we as a board can take any action, but Ms. Blackman, it's yours.
Go ahead, Ms. Blackman.
Good evening.
Good evening to you.
And thank you for allowing me to address you for all the ladies. I appreciate it. With the recent financial disclosures, the exposure that the community was hit with in the past, let's say 6 weeks, I decided to ask questions and to do some research. I was told that the city's hands were tied, I'm paraphrasing, because it's a private business. Others claim that the county has the lead and we have to follow them. So I talked to Mayor Gaines and he was quite informative. For the record, Empower HMS is not the owner of the hospital. It is the management company. The owner is CAH Acquisitions Company 11, LLC. and they took possession of the hospital's certificate of need in March 2010. It acquired the facility and the land on the same day. At the May 25th, 2016 meeting of the Tennessee Health Services and Development Agency, the hospital, or CAH Acquisitions Company, was approved to construct, excuse me, and replace the Lauderdale Community Hospital. So I'm not going to waste your time going into the background of this company and all of their subsidiaries. It was quite eye-opening, and the stench is overwhelming. However, as the administrator of the Facebook page, I received over 5,000 hits when I started posting information on the hospital and what I had uncovered. So on behalf of those 5,000 people who either read the entire post or part of the post or shared it with someone else, I'm asking you as the elected officials, what are you doing to retain this facility? I'm asking, why haven't you issued a public statement to kind of give some assurance to the members of the community, your constituents, as to the whether or not the facility will remain in the community, just what is going on, as much as you can legally impart without endangering any transactions or negotiations that are currently ongoing. It's clear that the company is having financial problems. Bankruptcy is not a stranger to this organization. So I ask you, are they filing bankruptcy on this particular hospital? We know that there are 4 hospitals in the same time frame, including Lauderdale Community Hospital, that didn't get paid. Same time frame. So it should be sending up a lot of flags. Finally, again, what is your plan of action, and what do you want your constituents to do? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Counselor, what can we, from the standpoint of city officials, legally do, if anything?
I'm not aware of anything, Mayor. I have, besides the specific communications I've had with members of the board, other officials, I've myself researched the issue. I have consulted with MTAS about the availability of relief, if any, to this privately owned and operated organization. And I've simply found none. Even if this were a nonprofit, the status of a nonprofit corporation changes the availability of working with or granting relief slightly, but it would still be an awfully difficult situation knowing that there was already a financial strain. But this is not a nonprofit, nor a charitable organization. This is a for-profit business. And while, as all of you know, this is a severe, difficult situation for the community, I don't know from the municipal standpoint that there is any relief that can be granted. When, I suppose a little more than a week ago, I was first consulted about this, my question was, what relief have they requested of the city? And I'm not aware that they've made any request for relief from the city. And I would, and that's not to say that I haven't researched the availability of relief on my own, but certainly this is a company whose business is functioning, not only in the operation sense, but in the financial sense, with other governmental entities, and they would be asking you for specific relief if they knew you could give it. And I'm not aware that they have asked for any specific relief, and my thought there would be that they know that there's none available that you can give. And that's the same answer I come up with, having researched it on several different occasions.
Thank you. One thing I can tell you, Ms. Gwen, is I've been out there just about every day the last 2 weeks. I've spent more time out there the last 2 weeks than I have since the building's been open. These discussions probably should have been going on 2 years ago. I basically have been dealing with them with our utilities, from the standpoint of our 2 utilities. They have either an advisory board or a hospital board out there that regularly met. I don't know how often they meet, and I don't know when they met the last time. But I always wondered why no one from this board here was on that board. It was represented by different entities, but the city of Ripley was not representative. I wasn't sitting on that board as mayor, and none of these elected alderpersons sat on that board, and I always thought that was a little strange, and I don't know how they came about with the board initially to deal with the things they had to deal with out there. So we met with state people. You know, the only thing that I could see from the standpoint of the city, we could possibly help get some consultants in here to help them work on issues, or possibly help them apply for grants if there are grants available out there. But other than that, you know, I don't know what else we can do at this point. I'm not privy to all the knowledge that's out there probably that I'm not aware of. You know, you get told what they want you to know. So, I mean, and I don't know where we're going. And kind of like Mr. Davis said, I don't want the hospital to go anywhere for sure. I can stumble over there from where I live, and if it's not there, I'm going to have to go to Covington or Dyersburg, and we know seconds make a difference. A good friend of mine the other day was probably saved because the hospital was here. If he had to go 30 minutes out, he probably wouldn't have made it, but he was brought back because he had coded out when our first responders picked him up. So rural hospitals are a struggle. There's been a lot of them in West Tennessee. Haywood County lost theirs. McKinsey lost theirs, and I don't know how many others here in West Tennessee. But I appreciate the research you've been doing, but our hands are tied since it was a for-profit organization. It's kind of like we had industry here that left that we couldn't, bail out from the standpoint of them being privately owned. We had a lot of industry here at one time that left. Thank God we've got industry in here now for jobs, and we're always trying to get more in here. But it's a struggle. It's tough. And if I knew more and could do more, I'd sure do it. But go ahead, Councilor.
Mayor, it's also important to note from a financial standpoint, although it doesn't really affect the threshold question of whether the city could help financially, it is important to remember that this is a corporation that owns and operates several hospitals. So if there were financial relief that came from any source, there's no guarantee that that relief would go to this hospital. They own several facilities, so money to the corporation doesn't guarantee relief to this hospital.
I think it's easy to say that nobody in the room or in the city or in the county wants that hospital to close. A less than super duper hospital is better than zero hospital. I think everybody understands it. I live close enough, I hear those helicopters come in and out sometimes 4 or 5 times a night. And I always wonder, if that happens, what's going to happen to those people? They can try to go north so they can fly south then, or they can try to go south and maybe hit it right in Covington. The Covington Baptist Hospital remained Baptist because it was profitable, and it remained profitable because the population was there. We don't have the population here. It's a struggle, there's no doubt about that. I don't think anybody's gonna have an easy answer. I don't think there is an easy answer. If there's a way the city can legally help, and so within some realm of possibility for us to do that, I don't see why we wouldn't. And I don't think that we would say no. But I don't know what that would be. We can't help. I work for quality service. If we have a bad year, we're not gonna get help paying our light bill from the city. If Chipman Construction has a horrible year, we're not gonna subsidize Chipman Construction, and I don't know how to, if there's a way to do that. I know it's an important deal, because it's a very, very important public service to have that hospital nearby. Nobody wants it to go away. But also, I don't think anybody knows how we can help them, or what we can do to help them. We can't just give them money, we can't just try to relieve them of bills and money that they owe, especially when it comes to the utilities. The utilities are not allowed to lose money. You know, it's illegal for the utilities to lose money, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, it's a catch-22. And there's just, I don't know what we can do. If there is something, somebody shows us, that would be one thing. But
Going a step further, it's illegal for the utilities to treat them
any
different than
differently,
any other customer.
well,
Some of this will be brought up at the next board meeting, is that correct? Maybe that one or the next one?
But, I mean,
No, there's a separate issue,
That's what I'm talking about.
but not related to the
Okay.
kind of questions that are being asked tonight.
Anyone else on the board have a comment?
Yeah, I have a lot of clients in Haywood County and, county too. And they went through the same thing you going through. They tried to keep theirs there. And, just finances just wasn't there, and the corporations are not dealing with them properly. So they just can't, they just couldn't keep it, but, they tried all they could. And I guess we would do the same.
Well, it's a struggle, and everyone knows that, so.
And they're a larger city than we are.
Well, to get, specialists to come to these small towns is a challenge, it's just tough.
Well, the irony to me of the whole thing is about 2.5 years ago, they were talking about building a new hospital.
Yeah.
And we all assumed that everything was in good order. And then all of a sudden, they're talking about closing. I think we were blindsided on it. And we can't just in a matter of 3 to 4 weeks give a remedy to the solution. We gotta see where the cards fall and what they're willing to do before we can possibly take any action.
Anyone else?
let's move on. Let's move on.
Ms. Gwen, we appreciate your input. Thank you. Next item, consider re-subdivision of city-owned property, map 95 GB 38 located on Scott Drive and Cedar Drive as previously discussed, and approval of adjoining property owners prior to submission and approval of Ripley Planning Commission, and approve the consideration and conveyance to adjoining property owners as depicted on drawing. Now, I see two of the property owners here tonight, Ms. Geraldine and Ms. Farmer, and we've got our surveyor here, Mr. Brantley, and Ms. Donna and me. I've been there several times. I think Ms. Nyrita's been there too, so where do we go now? You've got what's the game plan here, Donna?
well, we have a plat.
Okay, you all got
that has
this
been,
one.
that each of the property owners, the 4 property owners that were contacted.
Did they got these two? Or-
Well, no, this is how Mr. Morris has marked it on their properties.
Okay.
So for refreshment purposes, let's start at the beginning and tell us what this was about so that we'll all know and be caught up. Where did this start, how long ago, and what are we trying to accomplish to begin with?
In 2014.
Good question, good question.
Okay.
Let's just
In
start.
2014, one of the property owners, the city purchased this property at a delinquent tax sale in 2014. And then that property owner, of course, would have had a year to redeem the property at Chancery Court.
Like
And that has not
okay.
been done. This property has been advertised in the paper for sale also, with no one purchasing the property. I will say, the person that purchased some of the property at the last tax sale thought they were purchasing this one also, but it was in two separate parcels, so they did not acquire that property. But after it was advertised, it was noticed that this street, Cedar Drive, runs through part of this property, and we needed to clear up some of the deed. And that's what we tried to accomplish with the 4 property owners. And Mr. Morris can identify each of the areas if you want him to explain how we're trying to accommodate that.
I would like that very much.
And what he's going to explain has been presented to Planning Commission, and it was approved at Planning Commission.
All right. I've heard Brantley's story before. I can understand it. Let's hear what you got.
You like stories?
I like explanations, really, not stories.
Okay. Me and y'all.
See you with the building, we're good, like chicks, short.
All right, this map, this area you have before you is what is existing today before we do any re-subdividing. The property was originally, lots were being sold in 1935, between 1935 and 1938. And to access the lots in the back, they put a 10-foot road in. You see where, if you look to the north side, top of the page, you see where Cedar Street came off of Scott Drive and turned and went south. So it was a dead-end street, dead ending at the end of the south end of Tony Jones and Raymond Owens lot. Everybody see that? So that's the way the lot was developed. Sometime later, I believe in Mayor Richard Douglas's term, they built the street.
This will be between Scott Drive and Aldermen? Yeah.
So they built that street to allow for, circular access through in emergency vehicles, things like that. During that time when they built that, I'm assuming there was an oral agreement, verbal agreement to do that across those properties. We found no written record of where any street was dedicated for that section. So now, today, the city's acquired ownership of the property. You'll see on there the city of Ripley owning the property between Farmer, Campbell, Jeffries, and Jones. So as Ms. Donna stated, there's been multiple efforts of trying to convey the property, and it just seems to have fallen through every time. So the city employed me to go out and determine exactly where the property lines were and to facilitate dividing the property up. So the first step is the new street that goes across there, that there is no recorded right of way. The city needs to have, obviously needs to have something recorded on that. So to facilitate that, you see it crosses the north part of Mr. Jeffrey's lot.
Yeah.
So the first step was to go to Mr. Oscar Jeffries and to,
He lives in Hendersonville.
he lives in Henderson, and to approach him about, see if he would be willing in agreement to signing a deed of dedication on that road, just so we could have something in writing, crossing his lot.
So did that happen?
Yes, he's in agreement. If you look at the drawing that I just gave you, you'll see Mr. Jeffrey's original property line is this straight line going from east to west coming from Scott Drive. So the exchange was he would convey to the city by deed of dedication the triangles, the .034 acre or the 1,484 square foot triangle, In turn, the city would convey him in exchange the small triangle, the .019.
Yeah, the other corners there, okay.
Can I add?
Yeah, huh?
I want to add too, that when the roadway went through, while we're talking about those two triangular pieces, when the roadway went through, it inadvertently separated Mr. Jeffries from his water meter.
Right.
So part of the exchange will be that when those parcels are exchanged, his water meter will be relocated and be on his property as it should be.
And the Ripley Gas and Water Department is in agreement to relocate that, and they put that in writing.
Right,
So that was the first step so that we could get something in writing on the dedication.
so that's our blue stuff, all right.
Right. So Mr. Jeffries was in agreement, and he has signed this plaque, one of the signatures on here, showing his signature agreement to do so. So what that left us with then is, you see the property right next to Scott Drive, 0.146 acres. So that is bounded on the east by Scott Drive, on the south by Cedar Drive, and then on the west by Cedar Drive. All right, so the zoning requirements are for a lot that they're in this zone would be 9,000 square feet, 60 foot of frontage. And the little dash line triangle inside the lot would be the building setbacks. So you can see that that lot does not meet zoning restrictions, the way that it's been subdivided. So the best solution there then would be to approach Ms. Campbell to the north and ask were they interested in purchasing that lot. And they were interested, so they were in agreement to do that. And what we did was we combined this parcel with what they already owned and made it all one lot. So we had a buildable lot. And then on the west side of Cedar Drive, existing Cedar Drive, Ms. Jones, you see the .051 acre lot. If you look back on the aerial, you'll see that she's got a little storage shed. It's kind of outlined in purplish color there. She had a storage shed that was encroaching onto the lot the city owned. So in order to take care of that encroachment, and the shed had obviously been there for some time. And so to take care of that encroachment and to keep there from being any problems there, she and the city made an agreement to convey her the .051 acres. That took care of the encroachment. And then what was left to the north of that is the .199 acres, which you'll see again, that's less than what's required for a lot. It's less than the lot width. So it's not a available lot per zoning regulations. So we approached Ms. Farmer. That lot could either went to Ms. Jones or Ms. Farmer. The property was before the city got it 4 months and 7 years. 4 years and 7 months ago. Ms. Farmer was the owner, so we approached her, and she was interested in purchasing that. And so what we ended up with was this subdivision plat where we joined that .199 acres with what Ms. Farmer already owns and made it one big lot. We joined the little small strip to Ms. Jones and made hers all one lot. Then you'll see how the street is in here now where we made the agreement with Mr. Jeffries to dedicate the street. And then the lot one, you had that drawing there, I guess, too, where we combined all that with their property, made it all one lot so that all the lots now meet zoning requirements. And at the time, all property owners were in agreement to that, and they all signed it. And so we ran it through the planning commission, got it approved, and so we were.
And here we are.
Here we are.
Okay, well, now let me ask what kicked it from the planning commission up here to the full board?
Okay. The planning commission makes a recommendation here and the
Did
board
they do the recommendation?
elects
Okay,
to
so,
adopt it, elects
Okay.
whether or not to adopt it.
okay, that's in every case, not just because of it's included in here.
Well, but the main point of this is to,
The street,
the deed of dedication, and then to, the sale of the property to the owners, and the swap. the exchange of the properties.
So you've got several items on your agenda, and they're all interrelated.
Right.
But as the first item with regard to this is to consider re-subdividing per recommendation and approval of the planning commission. Consider to approve the deed of dedication to Cedar Drive. And again, you would be, in addition to approving the subdivision, you'd be approving the consideration and conveyance of the adjoining property owners depicted on this drawing. And the original graph, I think that Donna emailed or placed in your packets, actually shows the amount of consideration that has been
Right, that's-
discussed
yeah,
and
so
agreed
I see, yeah.
upon as an agreed market price for the
That's what I
property.
said.
Yeah, so, now,
The property owners agreed to that figure
if they
too.
have signed this, showing agreement to it,
Everybody signed on the plat,
Everybody
everybody's
signed.
agreement.
However, since this, and just here in the past
Maybe
couple of
30.
days, week, or whatever, I understand, I haven't talked to Ms. Farmer about it, but I understand now that she is not in agreement. And I haven't talked to her directly, so I don't fully know and understand exactly what she's wanting now. I understood she wants it all.
what do you mean it all?
She wants the whole lot back as it used to be.
Meaning without that strip to G. Jones.
Yes, that's what I understand, is that correct?
That's, yes. Well, of course, Ms. Farmer's here, but now, the main point is that she's wanting the triangle area of that,
She wants the front part
next to Scott Drive.
between Scott Drive and Cedar, and she wants the back part, .199 acres.
Right.
And I'm gonna have to ask her, I don't know if she wants the part where the shed's sitting on the lot too. So,
But
she
that's
signed it, she
totally,
was in agreement, now I understand she's not in agreement. So, we've been kind of going back and forth on this for quite a while, and so, here we are.
We've invested quite a bit of money in you doing the work that you've done, and we'll have to invest more to fix it the way, since last changed their mind.
The
Well,
dedication of the street, I mean, and the agreement with Mr. Jeffries needs,
It
in
needs
my
to be
opinion,
agreed.
I was like, we
needs
do
to
those
stand.
separately, we can break this up, right?
Tonight.
We can break this up, right?
well,
Well, the problem is it'd have to be sent back to planning commission to do that. Now, Mr. Jeffries, I think, has agreed to give a deed of dedication, but at this point, my understanding is that is part and parcel of the city's agreement to exchange the two triangular areas related to his lot with him. And I don't know where, I think maybe Ms. Farmer, that's one of those triangles is part of what she's interested in as well. And
I'm not
so, the difficulty here again is that, from the city standpoint, the city approached all of the concerned property owners initially through Mr. Morris, consulted with them about what was being discussed, obtained their approval for Mr. Morris, went to the difficult trouble of doing this survey, and the city went to the expense of paying for it. And so, in my opinion, there's an enforceable contract here. But Ms. Farmer, I don't know where Ms. Farmer stands, and I don't know whether Ms. Farmer has spoken with her alderman about the situation as of today, but
well, I'm on the planning commission, and we met and we discussed this. And at the planning commission, when we learned that all parties were in agreement, it was no trouble to pass this to the city board for approval. Now, if this has to come back to the planning commission, we're only delaying time. We've already spent enough money, more money than we're gonna get out of the sale of these properties.
Yeah.
At some point, we need to stop the bleeding and partner, the property owners that propose to buy it, can accept it at this price, or we can accept sealed bids, and who knows what they'll have to pay.
Right, and let me say something about if agreement is out the window and you go back to sealed bids, and Ms. Stein and myself tried to explain it to them, like, anybody could come in here and buy
Get
that
the
property.
piece, whatever it is.
And the way that we're doing it is actually to their advantage, because if you go back and look at this drawing, you'll see currently that this farmer's current property line is right there next to her house. And if somebody else buys that, outbids her, and buys that lot, then they can put a fence or whatever right down that line, and she's not gonna be pleased with that.
Well, that being the theory, the city could put a fence right there. They wouldn't, but the city could put a fence right there too.
It's,
It goes literally right to the edge of the house and to the edge of the edge.
but if she wants to take that risk, and I guess if this board decides not to do all the work that we've done, you know, it's,
But the lot next to our house, she's already paid for that, right? I think, is that's what I
Well,
was
no,
talking
she has
about.
as such made a deposit on it.
Okay, that's beside the house.
Right, but if
But
the board
what-
doesn't accept it, it'll just be refunded to her, but it hasn't been paid. It's, she knew on the front end it was just for to hold until the board approved. or-
Okay, but what she's asking for is the lot across. Is that not? Is
It's
that
asking for the
She
triangle
wants
across the
both.
street, as I understand.
She wants both.
Miss Farmer is here, and we allow her to
You
just
certainly, if you
stand
choose
up,
to.
Miss Farmer, please, ma'am. Go ahead and talk to us.
I'm close.
Come on up here.
The day that I signed this right here, I asked the brother in the kitchen, I said, when are we signing, have it been, the license was bought, you said, nobody bought nothing, right? You told me that.
That's right.
Okay, we leave it right there. But on $59 on the lot next to me. I'm not asking nobody to sell, only thing I'm asking, I want to buy the front lot back on Scott Drive. And the only reason why I want to buy it back, I can buy it, and I lost to the city. But I'm asking to buy it back from the city. That's all I'm asking, buy it back from the city. Because Miss Jones, your name is here, that's why we always park it, when we got, like Labor Day, our families come in, and everything, that's why we park it. Is that right, your name?
Yes.
And so anyway, the cameras don't see it the way we see it. The cameras don't want nobody parking on their park. So that lot, and the one I'm trying to buy back, it's a road, driveway separated. So that way, we wouldn't have no problem about parking on the camera property. Because he have called the police, since they bought it, to park on his property. David had. So I just want to buy that part back. I was mad them again, but like I said, I lost to the city. And the part next to me, I own over $59 on it. So I want to buy the other part on Scott Drive back. That's all. And that go through is all I ask.
When you signed this agreement
I
to
mean,
go along with this,
but
you were for this.
A little over 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, until all this drama came up, going by the park on my lot, on my property. He had signs about that. Right, Johnny Ford?
Yes, ma'am, it's been over 2 weeks.
And they had a part on my property. So that's why I'm asking, for the city to send it back to me, whatever, it takes, I want to buy it back.
Well, when we've got 2 or more parties interested in a particular lot, I think we're compelled as a board to accept sealed bids to sell the lot. Now, we only have one party interested. We've offered several lots for sale in the last few months, and we've accepted the highest bids on those. And when you've got 2 parties interested, I don't see how we can just say we'll sell it to one party, because obviously the Campbells are interested and you're interested, so.
I would,
Let me clarify something on, this farmer it mentioned a dirt road that used to be a driveway that comes off of Scott Drive into this lot. And she believes that that driveway, or at least half of it, is on property that she used to own. But it's not. That driveway is not, and was not, it may have been used as access to your lot at one time, and just neighborly letting me use it, but I found multiple iron pins up and down the street, and when you measure between them using the deed calls, that driveway is not on your lot.
When I bought the lot in 92, it was a dead-end street.
Well, that driveway, I know that you believe it to be yours, but it's not. And you can look on the aerial right there, and you can see kind of where, right across from her driveway, the grass is kind of wore out, and that's probably an area where they were parking Labor Day and things like that. That's not on her lot either, that's on the Campbell lot.
We parked on both of them. People parked on both of them.
Well, I understand, but there's not as much there as she believes it to be. The iron pins and things are out there to prove it. The deeds match the existing markers that are there. I know usage and belief through the years and her understanding of where she thought the line was. By deed and monuments, it's not where she believes it to be.
Well, at the end of the day here, the city can really only control what is owned, these two lots are owned by the city. We can't cut up anything else for anybody else, we can't deed anything to anybody else or anything else like that. We can agree to let them deed it, but we can't do the deeding. So I don't see where the city can take any action right here, right now, unless I'm just missing something.
It would have to go back to planning commission, for planning commission to look at it potentially and come to a different proposal. Right now, as Mr. Morris indicated, this proposal is part and parcel of an agreement with all the property owners that
So does that, let me ask you there, does that make this a legal contract since it's been signed by all these parties, yes or no?
it is my opinion that it does. That
Is
it would be
it's a legal
enforceable.
contract already?
It is my opinion that that would
And
be
I don't even want to
enforceable.
ask how much money we spent to come up with this here, because there's a lot, plus you're here tonight, so I know it's getting bigger all the time. I don't think the city needs to spend any more money.
But
in
here's
those
the
fees.
difficulty, Mr. Hankins. It is dependent upon Ms. Farmer, the sale to Ms. Farmer of that portion of enlarging both of these lots. What the proposal that the planning commission approved is contingent upon not just the Mr. Jeffries and that exchange of those two areas, the adverse possession issue with the shed that Ms. Jones has on part of the city's lot, but is also conditioned upon enlarging what was on the Campbell property and the Farmer property as shown here. And if Ms. Farmer's currently not agreeing that that be done, then it can't move forward, but it may result also in the city deciding to file suit against her to collect the money that the city expended based on her agreement that this be done.
Attorney Jackson.
And a couple of other things, again, there's no guarantee that if this goes back if this goes back to before the planning commission started, and if the city were to work out the issues with Mr. Jeffries and the street alone, the city would be left with two properties that would still be placed for public sale, and there's no guarantee Ms. Farmer would get anything. With regard to the lot on Scott Drive that she lost, and she's saying that she wants an addition to the parcel on her side of the street, that was sold for unpaid property taxes. She had a year after the property tax sale to redeem it. She did not. It was subsequently placed and advertised in the paper by the city for private individuals to make bids and purchase, and she did not do that either.
So now she cannot purchase this back, for what we have on this paper for the amount.
She could if she was in agreement that the proposal is she purchased what's on her side of the street and adjacent to her lot for the amount that's indicated here, that the Campbells purchase the property on their side of the street that's adjacent to their lot. There be the exchange with Mr. Jeffries of the parcels on his side, and that there be the conveyance to Jones of the part on which the shed lies. So it's conditioned upon all four of those things happening together and changing these lot lines as Mr. Morris has described. So she's either in agreement that that happens, or essentially the whole thing fails, goes back to planning commission. She's not guaranteed to get anything. She disrupts the sales to all the other owners, and that's where we are.
Bradley?
Can I say one more thing? Outside of the survey and the boundary lines and all of that, it's obvious through calling the police and things like that. They haven't been very neighborly in the neighborhood. And if this goes back, and if Mr. Campbell were to end up purchasing all of that property and put a fence down that line and block her completely off, it's not gonna be pretty down there, I'm just telling you.
I just feel like the city's just too involved in this.
Well, it all rests on whether Ms. Farmer is going to agree on, is Ms. Farmer is going to stand by the agreement that she made in December, which is reflected in what the planning commission recommended tonight. That's the bottom line.
It appears to me,
Either she says she's in agreement or she's not.
it appears, that's what I was gonna say, it appears to me tonight, you need to either agree to this or not agree. And if you agree, we can vote whether to accept it. If you do not agree, we can move on to the next agenda item.
Now, what you want me to agree with? You buying the property back?
This drawing.
So, I guess, Mr. Farmer, they're asking, is there any way you'll agree to this that you signed a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever, to do this?
Then me, I can't buy my property back from the Fed.
The one on Scott Drive.
That's what I want.
That is not part of the proposal, no.
Right.
That property would be sold to Campbell, because that was part of the agreement with all four property owners, including you, was that that property would be sold to Campbell.
Let me say this.
I make a motion, we offer these two pieces of property that are owned by the city to see bid be opened at the next board meeting.
We've got a motion,
It's part of the
give a
law in
second.
court now. You may get nothing.
I hate to do that, because she may get nothing. I don't want to see that
There's a
happen.
good chance.
But that's what I'm saying is, the one where it said it, I only own $59 on that property.
Is that the property that was sold in 2000, whatever it was, for lack of
Let
taxes?
me say this. I went into reverse mortgage, and I pay reverse mortgage taxes, I pay y'all taxes. And come to find out, I don't know reverse mortgage tax, that I was behind with my taxes with them. That's why they called City Hall to pay, I mean, not, you know. And so now,
It
I'm
was in
behind.
2 parcels. They-
I withdraw my
And
motion.
that's all that was placed on, that's all that was on her,
Ms. Farmer.
deed of trust.
I withdraw my motion.
What's fixing to happen here? If you continue to go this route that you're wanting to go, there's a good chance you might not get any of the property.
Not even the property side
Not
now.
even any of it.
That property
If you're
goes to somebody else,
outbid,
and they
if you're
build it.
outbid the way you're wanting to do this, and we'd have to go back and do it again, you could be outbid and not get any of it.
That's why I don't want to see it go back to an open sale again, because that could happen very easily. That shouldn't, that's not right, I don't want that to happen. But theoretically, somebody could acquire that and then build a fence right there beside your line, if they wanted to. I'm not saying they would.
They could acquire it, and she wouldn't end up with this for
That you wouldn't get any of it.
$359.42.
And the fact that the attorney is of the opinion this is a contract.
Carport.
Ma'am,
I really bid on it.
you'd rather bid on it?